Welcome to Popcast Deluxe, your doping at the Philharmonic of weekly cultural review. I'm John Caramanica, critic at the New York Times.
I'm Joe Coscarelli. I'm a reporter at the New York Times.
There's a lot of action this week. We're going to talk about two things that are on, should I say, extremely opposite poles of the pop music spectrum.
But not opposite poles of us.
No, this is We Contain Multitudes.
Yeah.
If you are careful watchers and listeners, you know we contain multitudes. We're going to start off by talking about Oliver Anthony Music, an entity, an individual, currently has the #1 song in the country by some metrics, including Billboard. We're going to talk about what it means to potentially game the charts. We're going to talk about situating this individual's music in the larger context of recent country music and political backlash. We're going to talk about a piece that you've written recently about the right-wing ecosystem that amplifies certain forms of media. We have a lot. It touches on a lot of themes that we return to over and again on Popcast. We're going to get into that. Then we're going to go somewhere else that also touches on a lot of themes that we get into on Popcast. We're going to talk about Addison Rae.
Addison Rae.
Where else are you going to get Oliver Anthony Music and Addison Rae?
It's funny to think which one is the viral star, Oliver Anthony or Addison Rae. Because right now, it's the former.
Yes. So we're going to talk about the Addison Rae EP that came out a few days ago and pop stars who are not yet pop stars, but who might be pop stars, but who aren't. Anyway, as a whole, if you've been waiting for a Charlie episode, keep waiting because we have an Addison segment for you. Then we got songs. We got snack. It's time to play Men North of Richmond.
Yeah. Song of the summer?
That was last week's episode, sir. This is Men North of Richmond. Should we play the second verse?
Yeah, we should play the second verse.
Let's just jump right to the second verse. Have at it.
I wish politicians would look out for minors, and not just minors on an island somewhere. Lord, we got folks in the street, ain't got nothing to eat, and the obese milking welfare. Well, God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. Young men are putting...
Joe, I have spent a significant amount of time in the last 2-3 weeks absorbing the complete recorded oeuvre of Oliver Anthony Music.
Yes.
Before we get into the back stuff, explain a little bit about how this song became the #1 song in the country on a factual level. We'll get into the politics and the meta-narrative in a minute, but talk about the facts first.
Yes. Earlier this month, August 2023,
were we ever so young?
Video appears on a YouTube channel called Radio West Virginia, Radio WV.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually really similar to the way a lot of rap songs go viral these days, which is like a guy with a microphone that may or may not be plugged in.
Yes.
Performing a song live.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying with quote marks.
Sure.
This one is in the woods somewhere. He's got a dobro, resonator guitar. Dogs are lying there. You hear the grasshoppers, the bugs, the cicadas buzzing in the background.
A lot of atmosphere texture.
A lot of atmosphere.
Visual and sonic.
You see this in other videos from the same performance, I think, but there's a really dirty like Ford Focus or something, like a used vehicle. He basically looks like he's camping.
Yes.
And also singing his heart out. And this video
is both sort of intense and casual at the same time.
Yeah.
Or the dynamic of intensity to casualness, it's like very out of whack. Like the ratio is very out of whack, which is what makes it even more compelling as a viewing experience.
Exactly. And this video starts circulating in more bite-sized chunks on social media, Twitter especially, X, I guess we call it now. New York Times style is now X, formerly known as Twitter.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
That's very wordy.
Yeah. But here we are.
Yes.
We're going to call it Twitter on Popcast Deluxe.
For now, if you know.
It is specifically the right-wing influencer ecosystem.
That kind of gloms onto it and amplifies.
Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire, Jason Whitlock, Joe Rogan, who, maybe not exactly right-wing, but traffics in some of these same. I mean, really, the people who are pushing it are what we can now call the blue check brigade. Like blue checks on Twitter used to mean something different.
Yes.
And in the Elon Musk era, it means often these guys.
Just as a total sidebar, does this song go as viral pre-Elon Twitter?
No, I
don't
not.
think so.
And I think, there's a quote in the story I did with our colleague Mark Tracy where Matt Walsh says that. He said Twitter is the main driver here.
Yeah.
And it might not have always been that way. And they're pushing this song as a breath of fresh air, that it's totally organic, it's totally stripped down, it's none of this artificiality that you find in modern society and
a common man
music.
lament.
Common man lament. He's talking about working overtime. He's talking about selling his soul to the man. He's alluding to inflation and high taxes. And it's not really until that second verse that we played where he puts a bit of a finer point on where he's coming from.
There's two specific topical turns.
Yeah, so there's the welfare line, which he seems to be against government assistance.
Or at least government assistance for some.
Yes, for the obese who want to buy junk food. And then there's the line that seems to allude to Jeffrey Epstein. I wish politicians cared about minors instead of minors on an island somewhere.
Right.
These are what some would call dog whistles. And what's interesting is the argument about whether or not this song is political actually helps drive the success of the song.
Of course.
So the conversation around it for these political figures to come out and say this song is not political as their first move is sort of genius chess, because then everyone on the left
is going to overcompensate.
Is going to scream, no, this is a right-wing song. This is a right-wing song. This is a right-wing song. And then everything spirals from there. So when did it cross your radar?
I think it was in those first vertical video clips that were going around. I feel like I saw it on Twitter, and I think probably I saw the song name talking on Twitter before I saw the song itself.
Right.
And once you dive in, this is like a stripe of country that I feel like I've written about a bunch over the years. Those videos felt really familiar to me. I just wrote about Morgan Wade, and when I was looking through like old Morgan Wade clips, there's like a clip from 2017 at Floyd Fest of her playing in like a very kind of casual setting that if you kind of like swap this in aesthetically wouldn't be like that far off. And it wouldn't be that far off from a lot of performances. I remember going in what's the thing in Portland? I can't remember.
Pickathon?
Pickathon. Remember going to Pickathon. If you had told me this video was filmed on like a side path at Pickathon, would have been totally not unexpected. Aesthetically, it feels very much in line, especially with the sort of like turn to like rootsier or more, I mean, again, these are not real words, but like authentic or more grounded or more earthen country in the last 2 years, particularly with the rise of Zach Bryan and folks coming on Zach's heels. This all feels very much of a piece. Like this is a moment for a song that is the most stripped down version of that style to get traction. That is not exactly why it is getting traction, but I do think the subject matter, 75% of the subject matter, 80% is indistinguishable from most things that you're hearing in this ecosystem from performers who I don't even know how they identify politically. They might identify left, they might identify right, they might identify libertarian, sort of generic big city versus small town. The man is keeping us down. None of that stuff sets me off at all. Like that's totally par for the course. But then some of these like unusual, like to devote an entire couplet or quatrain to fudge rounds and welfare cases.
Did you know what fudge rounds were?
I have to be honest and say I didn't. And we are as snack food aficionados.
But you got the idea.
Of course I got the idea, but like
context clues.
Yeah, I think so. Also, I did just looking online, like fudge round is also the name of like a particular Lil Debbie product. So like maybe it's that, but like Lil Debbie is maybe not as much in New York. So that to me was incredibly striking. And I think obviously it's not how the song leads. That's number one. But also that seems designed to call out to a very specific kind of listener.
Yeah. And then what I think happens is because the song is arresting and the visual is arresting and it's catchy, it's simple.
He's a good singer.
He's a good singer. The performance is compelling. I think in a lot of the ways that these freestyle rap videos on the street are work because you're connecting with an artist in a different way than a music video that's slightly more produced.
Right.
You're really looking in this guy's eyes and you're feeling it. And then there's this little plot twist. I think what this does is it sends people down the rabbit hole. And all of a sudden, everyone's like, where did this guy come from? Who's backing him? What's going on here? You're getting the ideological collision, and you're also getting the second phase of anybody going viral, which is like, who is this person?
Right.
You know, the milkshake ducking of this guy, the attempted milkshake ducking of this guy. And it turns out you find this YouTube and he's basically set up for this. He knows that this song is going to be something, it seems, because he makes a 9-minute video that says, you know, it's a pleasure to meet you. Like, I'm going to introduce myself.
Maybe at least a few of you are going to drift your way over here. And I thought I'd have kind of an introduction video on what it is I'm aiming to do here.
When in the sort of arc did that post?
I think it was posted right around the time that the song was released.
So before it went viral?
Yes, I believe so. It seemed prepared. He was sort of like, you know, I'm putting out this song. I know you might be curious about me. Here's who I am. He presents himself as down the middle politically. You know, he has a few other songs you can go back and listen to. You know, he talks about how he was struggling. He was a factory worker, struggling with drugs and alcohol. He seems to have found God.
Yeah, there's a
recently.
religious turn.
There's a religious turn. And he particularly mentions his preoccupation with child trafficking and the atrocity, he calls it, of the normalization of child trafficking, which, again, you know, he doesn't say the storm is coming. He doesn't say QAnon. But
those are shared interests.
He's pulling at a thread sort of that runs through politics and culture right now. And certain people are attuned to these frequencies stronger ways than others. So it's, you know, and that goes for his sort of his religious backing too. I think, you know, he's putting forth the experiences of somebody who's been born again, but he's not saying those words explicitly.
Right. But there's also, and for what it's worth, there are other songs in his catalog where he says, I'm not a fan of Democrats or Republicans, you know, but also what he's really not a fan of are people
city slicker
bureaucrats.
Yeah.
Which,
I think you could call this strain of music and politics anti-elite.
Yes.
And I mean that purposefully vague, like, because a lot of people can put their baggage or subtext onto what it means to be anti-elite in this moment.
And again, to reemphasize something I said before, anti-elite living side by side with like the rural urban divide. These are absolutely familiar threads in decades and decades of country music. We talked about this a little bit on regular Popcast a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the Jason Aldean song. There is political and social anxiety that is all about sort of rural authenticity that has always been woven into the genre. And on top of that, if what you do is if you look at who's actually performing, especially in the mainstream, a lot of people who are quite literally performing rural authenticity. That is just an ongoing thread. This seems both a rebuke to like city slickers, but it also seems like a rebuke to the folks who are making mainstream country records, even mainstream country anti-elite records.
I mean, that's what the Morgan Wallen album is about my ex-girl, lives in the city. She has a condo.
Of course.
I have a truck. I'm in the mud. And I hope I never have to live your lifestyle again. Like, that's every song on the Morgan Wallen album. And yet, when you listen to Morgan Wallen, whose song was knocked off the charts after 16 weeks by this one, Morgan Wallen is making all these concessions to modern music and to black music specifically. You know, there's digital sounds, there's
drum programming,
there's auto-tune, whatever it is. You know, Morgan Wallen is conversant with the rest of the country and the music industry, even if his themes are these ones of anti-eliteness.
Right. And again, the performance of anti-eliteness. You know, Morgan Wallen, as we speak, is selling out stadiums around the country.
Even Luke Combs with Fast Car, the other big country song of the moment.
Yeah.
There's a sort of bridge there to Blue America, to urban America. This is a Tracy Chapman song that has become universally beloved.
A beloved pop hit, cross-generational, by a black woman.
Right. And this is very much...
Takes all that away.
And says, here's the people who belong, and here's who this music belongs to, and everybody else is an outsider.
Something that struck me when I was watching videos of this, of Men North of Richmond, the live performance, not the one that went viral, but the one from the show, the subsequent
He played a
week.
farmer's market.
Right.
Total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and I don't think you know, but I know that you do, cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end, cause the rich men know what the rich...
Look, this is true of any hit song, right? People know the hook, right? Like they know but then what I noticed is in the first verse, people are really, really singing along. Maybe I'm overreading, but I could sense a little bit of ambivalence in the second verse, especially with the welfare lines, because maybe in the communities, maybe there are people who are on welfare. Maybe there are people for whom that is actually a little bit of a red button issue in the other direction.
Or the beginning of the song is the one that was on social media.
Either way,
and it's the TikTok
tough,
hook.
Right. It's tough to know.
Yeah.
It's tough to know. But I was very, very struck in watching a couple of those videos and saying, interesting to fall off at that moment.
That is fascinating. I also think we should talk about the sort of business mechanisms at play here.
Yeah, sure.
Because
how does this song, not on a record label, he posted subsequent to its success, he was being offered $8 million deals.
Yep.
If you know which label is offering $8 million deals in any genre.
Certainly not Gucci Man.
Gucci. Shout out
he
Gucci.
wanted to sign him.
First country artist on 1017.
Yeah. But is not, I don't think is backing up the Brinks truck to the tune of $8 million based on
if Gucci Man
how
signs,
Gucci usually signs
if Gucci Man
artists.
signs Oliver Anthony music for $10 million, like we could retire.
Yeah, let's just see how it goes.
Yeah,
I'll just kick my feet up and watch.
Also, who's offering $8 million?
Yeah,
curious.
let us know.
Popcast and nytimes.com.
Yeah,
we're curious.
Yeah.
What is the mechanism? Because there is a very specific mechanism, and again, one that longtime listeners and viewers will be familiar with in other contexts.
Yes. So the blueprint, most immediately, is what happened with the Jason Aldean song. Try That in a Small Town. Only a couple weeks ago, Jason Aldean song was doing no business. He's a popular veteran country artist.
Just a mid-level single or even below that.
Yeah. It did 822 downloads 1 week.
Paid downloads.
Paid downloads on something
Shout out
like
to
the
everybody
iTunes
still doing
store.
Paid downloads.
Then the lyrics go viral for being, potentially racist dog whistle towards
vigilantism.
Sure. CMT pulls the music video, which is shot at the site of a lynching, Black Lives Matter footage, sort of combined with crime footage, making America look like a big old mess. In response to that initial backlash, a much larger backlash to the backlash results in people downloading this song. Now, downloading a song is not something that people do in 2023.
Ordinarily.
Except if they want to prove a point.
K-pop fans.
K-pop fans do this. They know that downloading a song is weighted heavily in Billboard's magical chart formula.
Yeah.
Paying for something with your money as opposed to just subscribing to Spotify and getting a little bit of everything.
Streaming a song a bunch of times.
Pushes songs up the charts. And this is a pop stand tactic that has recently been adopted by country listeners, specifically country listeners of songs that are polarizing, like Try That in a Small Town and Rich Men of Richmond. After Aldean's song becomes the subject of news coverage and political debate, it goes from 800 downloads to 228,000 downloads.
Right.
Where those are coming from, we're not sure.
It almost feels like a one-day protest march.
Yes. In this case,
in
like
the
a two and a half week protest march.
But basically everybody shows up at the same time.
Yes.
Demonstrates support. But then more or less returns to their
it falls
to their
back
homes.
off, right?
Yeah.
So what we saw with the Aldine song was it rides this big wave to number 2. The next week it sells another 100,000 plus downloads, and then it hits number 1, and then all of a sudden it's basically gone. People are like, we made our point here. Now, what we tried to do in the story that Mark and I wrote this week is link this to broader currents in popular culture, and specifically in conservative culture. There's this movie, Sound of Freedom,
Right.
Also about child trafficking, had huge word of mouth business this summer, has become one of the biggest independent films of all time, exists basically outside of the mainstream. You know, it was boosted by Jordan Peterson and some QAnon people and Donald Trump, as was the Aldine song.
Not the first time that something like that has happened in the film space.
Totally.
I feel like there's been a few. In
Passion
the
of
last,
the Christ even going back,
Yeah,
which
for sure.
also stars Jim Caviezel, who's the star of Sound of Freedom.
There's just, I feel like in the last 2 or 3 years, especially, there have been a couple of films that sort of did a decent amount of business at the box office, amplified in conservative ecosystems
Yes.
that were not playing at like UA Times Square
Yes.
or Regal Times Square or whatever it's called now.
Totally.
Yeah.
You know, this is a thing in book publishing as well.
Yeah.
You know, right wingers always dominating bestsellers lists, but also sparring with the people who keep the bestsellers list.
Well, you mentioned in the piece owning the libs.
Yes.
Right? This is owning the libs by theoretically the libs own charts. Now, obviously charts in theory are neutral. Everybody has an equal shot. Everybody can be owned if somebody wants to own them. But this is owning the libs using what is perceived as the tools of the libs, which is the chart.
Yeah,
and,
like
and,
people-
and kind of like intruding and
Yeah.
saying, no, we're here too.
Yeah, they think of the culture industries as left-leaning,
Right.
and they say, if we can find a way to infiltrate these spaces, we will show you that, you know, woke media is not actually most
In
of the
charge.
country. Yes. And I think that is something we're seeing increasingly, and the downloads make it really possible to either, some would say, exploit these systems, or to just be super savvy about it, which again, we've seen the Swifties do. We've seen K-pop fans, like, you know, we spoke to Jamie Brooks, musician, cultural critic, great writer and observer of these things.
Great on Twitter.
Great on Twitter.
X, formerly
Great
known
on
as Twitter.
X, formerly known as Twitter. And, you know, she said, you know, K-pop fans are way ahead of the game in terms of this stuff. And for them, what they're getting is representation. To see a K-pop artist at the top of the charts, even though they might not, especially in years past, get played on the radio or MTV or have a ton of American media coverage, we're going to put them in front of your face because that means something to us as a fan group. And I think we're seeing that increasingly be employed by people on the right who also feel like they are not being represented in mainstream culture.
It also sort of turns the chart less from an index of like a pure popularity or a pure success metric to almost like an exponential, like how fervent is the fan base.
Yes.
And this is something that comes up a lot, especially I feel like we've talked about this a lot over the years with K-pop. To what degree is K-pop actually popular in America? Obviously it's popular. I've been to shows at arenas that are sold out, etc. I'm not disputing that on a fundamental level it's popular, but is it popular at the specific intensity that the chart positions might otherwise indicate?
Right. Because they're activist fans. They specifically make plans to boost streams, sales, downloads.
Much like Taylor Swift fans?
Yes.
Yes.
Totally. What's interesting about K-pop and Swifties, and this is something Jamie mentioned as well that I had noticed, is you can see that organization happening in public. You can go to the Discord channels, you can read it on the message boards, you can see it on Twitter, there's hashtags. With the Aldine song and the Oliver Anthony song, I don't know if this was centralized. I don't know, like...
Well, isn't the sheer participation of influencers in that space, like it's not like you're talking about those spaces that are sort of largely out of public view.
Yeah.
On some level, isn't this the opposite? Because it happened fully in public
It's
view.
true, but they're never saying explicitly, like I've seen Chris Brown fans do, I've seen BTS fans do, saying, here's how you help.
You mean
chart
like,
position.
yeah, so you remember
They're
like the
not
Justin
saying-
Bieber thing where they
Yeah.
were like, even Bieber's team was like, here's how you can boost
Yeah,
Justin Bieber. Right.
they're not even saying go download this from iTunes instead of streaming it on Spotify. There's
No one said that. That you said.
yeah, not that was not a main thrust of the conversation.
Huh.
And I think that's where it's interesting to draw a line between the Aldine song and the Oliver Anthony song, even though they've succeeded in similar ways, which is maybe the Oliver Anthony music track is a better song and people want to listen to it not just for the cause, not just to own the libs. You know, I spoke to people at Luminate whose data fuels the Billboard charts, and they said it was behaving like a normal viral song, which is like, you know, conversation kicks up around it, people are curious, and then you see the streams
like
go up. Yeah, like the streams go up and up and up. And I think like
I'm about to sin again. This is actually great.
Yes.
It's
Oliver Anthony music
collaborate
about to
with
sin again.
collaborate
Yes.
with Fly Out of Boss, please.
I wonder what you think as a critic, sort of musically, like, does this song have legs beyond the controversy?
So I think about it in two different ways. Like the sentiment of the Aldine song, even without the video, let's say that it had found success without the video, but people really got into it. There's something kind of it's pugnacious. Yeah. It's scabrous. It's fixing for a fight.
Yeah.
I think that's a tough sentiment to get behind in a big picture. I mean, that's an extremist sentiment, really, on any side of an issue. The people who are really ready for a fight, that's an extremist sentiment. The sentiment of this song is not that. The sentiment of this song is, I'm downtrodden. I'm being held down. I don't know who they are. John, don't know.
Sure,
yes,
whatever you
I
wanna
don't know
call
who they
them.
are.
Yeah.
And maybe even Oliver Anthony Music, whose real name is Charles, just for the record.
Yeah.
Right. Which we didn't say. Even he may not know.
Charles Anthony Lunsford.
Even he doesn't necessarily know who these folks are who are holding him down. He just knows he's being held down. And I think the condition of being held down, the condition of feeling that no matter what direction you try to channel your energies, some unknown force, political, social, etc., is blocking you, that is a much more broadly relatable sentiment.
Yeah.
And I think when you go back and listen to his other songs, and you see that that's essentially what he's reckoning with are, I am a man that has moral failings and I'm trying to better myself. But at the same time, there are things that I feel that I can't triumph over. Those are broadly relatable. And I wouldn't be surprised if when people were first exposed to this song, they said, okay, I get behind the anti-elite sentiment. But maybe on the second listen or the third listen, they started to identify maybe with something that was different, which is, I feel helpless. And again, he's singing about helplessness with fervor, with passion, with strength and determination.
Yeah.
I think that is probably what's connecting with a lot of people. Whereas the Aldine record, even on the best day, is like, want to scrap?
Yep.
Let's scrap.
Yep.
And like, I don't know if people, maybe 6 months from now, all of mainstream country will be like, let's scrap music. Maybe folks are in the studio right now writing those records in hopes that country radio will pick them up. But this to me seems like a much more relatable, broad-based sentiment, excluding the kind of like dog whistle stuff.
It also seems to transcend what people think of as country music. You know, there's a kind of fan anecdotally who's like, oh yeah, I only like Hank and Johnny, but I don't like this new crap
stuff
they put on the radio.
And frankly, that fan is both like a cool coastal person and also like an OG country
That's
person.
what I mean.
Yeah,
and I think
both.
that constituency is huge. The constituency that's like, I like real country music.
Yeah.
I like the outlaw stuff. I like, you know, and we had this moment with Stapleton. Even going back to the rise of Stapleton, which is like, all of a sudden he's on TV, weirdly with Justin Timberlake. That guy.
Great beard.
Like, great. Yeah. It's, I mean.
Great hat. Great beard.
Again.
Great song. Great singer.
Beards go a long way. Authenticity.
Yeah.
You know, depending on what milieu
Really
you're
good
in.
beard. Oliver Anthony.
It's definitely a big beard.
Yeah.
And I think people every couple of years are starved for that, you know, for something that feels timeless. And to them, timelessness is equated with acoustic instrument. Like, you know, we see it at the Grammys every year.
Of course.
You know?
It's like the worst, like low level, like, man, this guy's real. Look at him. He's in the woods. He's playing a guitar. It's much realer, quote unquote, than anything. I mean, this
and
is
I
like,
think
it's
the
tiresome.
influencer class was right to lead with that. Instead of being like conservatives, MAGA Republicans, whatever you want to call them, like, here's our guy. They're like, no, this is for everyone. And it takes a much closer listen to realize, like, in fact, some people are being excluded.
Well, some people are being excluded, and also the type of people who are advocating are not necessarily the downtrodden.
Right.
Like if you are a successful influencer in any sphere, you might not be the subject of the type of oppression that you think that this song is communicating the sentiment of.
That's politics, baby.
No, of course. No. So what would be fascinating, actually, and from what I can tell, Oliver Anthony Music has not given any interviews yet.
Yep.
As of this recording.
Give one quote to Billboard saying, that he's not special. The people who supported the song are special. Fine.
I am curious to know at some point when this all like smooths out and calms down a tiny bit. I'm curious to know if this person who seems inherently skeptical, like look, there's stuff in this that's politically, it's not great. It's tough, but like inherently skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
Is that skepticism going to turn on the class of conservative influencers who have amplified
Oh,
him?
wow. That's an interesting...
I'm curious.
I mean,
I don't think it's that's the thing. Like, I don't think it's a pure given. I'm not saying there isn't stuff, and certainly stuff in his back catalog that would indicate that this intersection is exactly where he wants to live. He may totally want to live here, or he may grow and say, this is actually not the team that I'm on.
And that's where the Zach Bryan stuff comes back into play. Because when you spoke to Zach Bryan, who had this huge success last year and sort of started in the same way, just a guy playing from his soul into a camera and onto YouTube
and onto and also got trending on Twitter.
Yeah, and he was embraced by people who he felt like maybe didn't have his best interests at heart and wanted to use him as a pawn in some broader war, right? And he pushed back on the sort of saddling of political baggage onto him.
And again, I think the big picture question that's going to be facing Nashville, and we talked about this a touch last week, but the big picture question to be facing Nashville in the next 6 to 12 months is this just who we are now? Are we either encouraging our current stars to lean into records like the Aldine record or the Oliver Anthony record, or are we going to go seek out the next class of performers who want to make records along these lines?
It will be a weird time to do that, though, because the big tent approach is working so well. Like, this is it started with the last Luke Combs album and the last Morgan Wallen album, but on this album, it's like where they've really crystallized, like, we are playing with the big boys. We are fighting Travis Scott on the streaming charts. Young people are listening to this music. This is popular music. This is pure crossover country. And it's because of those outreaches, both cultural and sonic. And so it would be weird to do a 180 on that based on these two things, which feel very much like blips and like grassroots. Yes, in some way, sure. But also manufactured in some way because of the interplay with downloads and the charts.
Think
and all
of it.
that
We're
stuff.
heading into primary season. We're heading into an election year. These issues, like alleged like values conversations, are going to be at the forefront. I mean, they already are because of how certain news ecosystems work. But these conversations about values are going to be at the forefront of every major political conversation for the next, I don't even want to think about it, 18 months. And so if that's the climate that we're heading towards, if I'm sort of like a ruthless record label capitalist, I'm thinking, damn, I want the soundtrack for that. And I'm really, really thinking that someone, I don't know if it's Everly, I don't know who offered him $8 million, but I'm thinking someone said, I got the soundtrack for election season 2024. Is there any of the other songs, the older songs, that what you're about to ask?
Exactly what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, I mean,
like, is there a catalog here, or is this a viral flash of lightning and we'll never see it again?
Okay, so I'm of two minds on this. One, broadly speaking, I'm incredibly sympathetic to music that sounds like this, and I feel like
you love Mumford and Sons.
Genuinely one of the least pleasant arena shows I've ever had to cover or been to. I guess I must have covered it. I can't think of that up. Yeah, I can't think of another reason why I was there. Genuinely unpleasant. Broadly speaking, I'm sympathetic to something like this. I enjoy listening to it. I seek it out. This is like a universe that I feel a lot of enjoyment and passion for. So on a pure musical level, a lot of this makes a lot of sense to me. I think the songwriting is conversational, but also very, very tight. Like, I think he already understands like how to put together a well-structured thing. and seems to have done that completely outside of the conventional publishing and songwriting worlds. I've Got to Get Sober. Thought was really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot on Doggone It that I thought was well written.
What about people eating bugs because they won't eat bacon?
I mean, look, you know,
it's giving InfoWars.
Yeah, I love bacon. Just for the record.
Right.
Just for the record. I love bacon. Yeah, there's bits I don't like, and it does feel like there are I sometimes think that political ideology broadly construed is cobbled together more than it's fully embodied.
Right.
There is something cobbled together about this, and the presumed common source material for like lyrics about being a downtrodden common man and also about bugs and bacon. Like, are they coming from the same place, or are they kind of like stitched together?
Right.
I can't quite tell.
But
We don't know. I want to know. We want to.
Like,
right,
I
we
think
want to
that's
know.
an average voter.
That's
It's
what I'm
like
saying.
Pulling random talking points
From some from Twitter, some from television, some from a newspaper.
Yeah.
If wherever there are newspapers.
Probably not our newspaper.
Not our newspaper.
Yeah.
But like, you know, pulling things together.
Yep.
And again, I think you're right. I think it is reflective of
Something.
a regular voter.
Yep.
In any, frankly, of any back. There are people on the left who cobble together. It's not simply a right or a left thing.
Of course. Yeah.
And so I'm really curious to know, now that there's a spotlight on this individual, is this person going to say, I'm double all these things that were dog whistles?
Mm-hmm.
That's actually what I do.
Yeah.
I'm doubling down.
That's
on
the
that.
point.
Right. I'm glad you're
I'm a
here.
messenger for these
Right.
things.
I'm glad you're here. That's what this is about. So I wonder that, but also I wonder, is he going to say, now that I have access to megaphones, now that I have your attention, actually, I want to tell a broader story about the struggles of the common American citizen and suppress all of this stuff. That doesn't mean it goes away. Doesn't mean didn't say it. Doesn't mean didn't mean it.
Right.
But is it now not part of the package? And I feel like,
Do we smooth out the rough edges in favor of more relatable rough edges?
yes, and more universal rough edges. I don't know. I mean, this is something that's true of any independent artist in any genre.
It's true.
This is very similar struggle of going from an independent rap career to a mainstream rap career. This could be true even in indie rock, moving into like bigger production, and maybe the song lyrics get a little bit more general. This might even be true of Taylor Swift becoming a pop star with like much less specific lyrics. When you're walking this direction, at some level, you're sacrificing specificity for broad relatability. The stakes, though, here feel much higher.
He does seem preternaturally sort of ready for this spotlight, though. I don't know if you caught the composure in not only his spoken statements and YouTube videos,
the written thing,
but everything he's posted on Facebook.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sort of like brain scrambled. Like, it's so well written. It's so composed. No typos. You know, he's coming right out and saying like, I'm a bad guy. I'm just some idiot with my guitar. Like, not a good person.
Also real Zach Bryan energy, to be honest.
I agree. And it's like he was waiting for this, and like he was made for it. And we've seen this amount of tension, you know, collapse people, and we've seen people who can just keep driving. And in fact are energized by it.
It's funny because you and I talked about this a little bit the other day. I feel like if there was something going on behind the scenes, and which is sort of where we're heading, like, is there some other thing happening that's like
industry plant is the term that
which is not a real thing,
gets thrown around
as a term. It's not a real thing. But anyway, I actually think that there would be typos. I think that it would be less polished.
Right.
I actually think if you are saying I'm everyman.
Yep.
Is everyman writing 9-paragraph, perfectly composed, like no type, like actually no. I would actually say that
certainly not on Facebook.
No, and not on a lot of other websites that we read regularly, like just regular news and information websites. So that made me think that this is like sort of an individual who is very, very craft oriented. I feel like you hear the craft oriented nature of this person in the songwriting.
Yep.
So maybe it's not that surprising if you're hearing it in the songwriting that you're seeing it in the other aspects of his public presentation. Don't know. Okay, well, that was a lot.
Yeah, I'm exhausted.
That was a lot. But we have range.
We do.
We have range.
You know who else has range?
I do know who else has range.
Lady Gaga.
I thought you meant burgeoning cross-media star Addison Rae.
her too.
A few days ago, Addison Rae dropped an EP. It's called AR, which contains...
What's AR stand for? It's not a trick question. Keep going.
Yeah, okay. Thanks. We're talking about Addison Rae, and frankly, it's not just us. A tremendous amount of organic Addison Rae interest. I guess if we're talking question of the week, the question of the week this week is not so much a question as much as a demand.
And a demand from a handful of people.
Yeah, there might be more, but at least there were 3 back-to-back emails at the Popcast and NY Times address. Ravi Shah, Elliot Weil, and Ciara Tomlinson, all essentially being like, talk about Addison Rae. So we're going to talk about Addison Rae. It is a collection of polished versions of songs that had leaked. Addison Rae in 2021, I think, put out Obsessed. Shall we put Obsessed up on the Summer Jam screen?
Yeah, we should listen to a little bit of Obsessed by Addison Rae with Benny Blanco.
You say you're obsessed with me, so I took a second and I said me too. I'm obsessed with me as much as you. Say you die for me, I'd die for me too. And if I lost you, I'd still have me, I can't lose. When you say that you're obsessed with me too.
I think at the time that this song came out, I referred to it as Peloton core.
Good genre.
Yeah.
Lucrative.
Definitely. And yet somehow never quite, there was no second single.
Yep.
There was no kind of like Addison Rae is actually going to be an A-list or even B-list pop star.
Hold on, but why was there even an Addison Rae first single? Like who, let me put it to you this way. Who is Addison Rae?
Are you asking me, did Addison Rae, like Oliver Anthony music, write a 9-paragraph Facebook post explaining who she is when she
introducing
first got
herself? Yeah. No, her. You know how she introduced herself? Do the dance.
I won't. I won't. Addison Rae was TikTok famous. Addison Rae is a post Charlie D'Amelio.
Great phrase.
2.0 or
1.5.
1.1,
Sure.
TikTok star, who got incredibly famous very quick during that stretch in 2020 where young female dancers were
typically
white. I mean, almost exclusively white. Were kind of ascending to the top of the platform very, very, very rapidly.
Yeah.
Addison, I think, seemed at the time a tiny bit like older than Charlie, and so I think was plucked into the kind of entertainment ecosystem much more rapidly.
Starts hanging out with Kourtney Kardashian.
That was fast. Yeah,
that was really fast.
really
and
fast.
Also Kourtney in her 40s. Addison Rae freshly dropped out of LSU.
Sounds like a perfect match.
Yeah,
they're great.
Yes.
Addison Rae graduated very quickly
into a Netflix deal.
Right. And also there was that interesting thing that happened where she was on Fallon, where she did a bunch of TikTok dances.
Yeah.
And that was in the moment, maybe in a 2.0 moment, where people saying, oh, you're taking credit for these dances.
That was the first Addison Rae backlash.
Right. And it was an interesting conversation about ownership of the dance moves and racial representation on TikTok. Also, it's just on its face, it's a silly late night segment.
Yeah,
they could have literally asked Scarlett Johansson to do those dance moves. They could have asked Derek Jeter to do those dance moves.
We need the AI Scarlett Johansson doing the Renegade.
Someone should do that.
Yeah, deep fake.
Popcast.nytimes.com. As a sidebar, we asked about a Jersey Club remix of Last Night last week, and I got a couple in the emails.
Morgan Wallen Jersey Club remix.
They're out there. I also sent you one the other day. Yeah, they're out there. So Addison Rae was an early TikTok star, an early TikTok backlash, and an early TikTok graduate in the sense that she was being groomed for success in other aspects of popular media.
Right.
That Netflix movie she did,
He's All That.
Right.
The gender flip of
She's All That.
She's All That.
Was fine. I wouldn't watch it again.
Right.
But the Addison Rae pop star conversation really, really lines up with like a long history of like Paris Hilton pop star, Lindsay Lohan pop
Kim
star,
Kardashian.
Kim Kardashian pop star.
Nobody talks about Kim's single with The Dream.
whole chapter on that coming. But all these stars who sort of like limb reality and performance somehow
Cardi B.
Absolutely. Although Cardi B, the most talented of the bunch.
Yeah.
There's an Addison Rae single, Obsessed, which obviously felt very prefab at the time.
Yeah.
She doesn't have a lot of vocal personality necessarily, at
Right.
least not in that song.
Right.
But why not?
Unlike Kim Kardashian.
I think my main question with Obsessed, like, those two parts. So it's like, on the one hand, why does this exist?
Yeah.
On the other hand, why not? If we're being subjected to, as you know, we ran a piece recently by Shad about like pop stars who aren't really pop stars or pop stars who aren't popular. Like, why not actually have a popular person trying to make pop music? Why not?
And then what happens is nobody likes a song. Everybody makes fun of it. Which immediately turns her into
A cause celeb
and a queer culture icon.
Sure.
In the same way as we can rattle off some of the names: Shad D'Souza, Go Read the Essay, Charlie XCX, Rita Ora, sort of like the patron saint of this stuff. Ava Max, BB Rexa, Carly Rae Jepsen, the least popular of all pop stars at the moment.
Caramanica declined to comment.
Yeah, I mean, and this is Kim Petras, who we've spoken about. And it's funny because trying to make Addison Rae into an A-list pop star and failing means that she might land somewhere more sustainable, which is like C-list pop star.
Right. I mean,
ironic pop star, meta pop star, whatever you want to call it.
But I'm all the way around on it because if we're in the era of like world-class center, I'm a freak.
Yeah,
that's a great song.
Addison Rae is actively trying to become Jocelyn with this EP.
Right. And not trying to become Jocelyn IRL, like trying to become literally the falsity.
Yes.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
And I think this EP is like, I'd say it's good.
Yeah.
It's not the meme. Here's the thing. It's not there was the Pitchfork 9.0 meme that was going around.
Which is funny.
Yeah, it's funny. And to be honest, check back tomorrow.
Yeah.
By the time this comes out, that could actually be a real thing. I think this EP is good. I think it's eminently listenable.
Everyone's in on the joke.
Right, except it's not a joke.
Or is it?
It's not a joke.
It's not a joke on Addison, that's for sure. She's totally bought
What is it
in.
a joke on? It's a joke on pop?
It is a joke on pop. It's a little bit of a joke on pop.
But pop inherently has room to accommodate self-referential humor.
Right.
So I don't actually think you can joke on pop because pop already anticipates your joke.
I mean, the real savvy play on this EP is she records a version of a song that exists online as a Lady Gaga demo. It's called Nothing On But the Radio.
Also a great Gary Allan song, just for the record. Go look that up.
This is snake eating its tail, eating its tail, eating its tail. You know, like basically songs like this that never get put out by pop divas become cult objects to then be embraced by cult objects who wanted to be pop divas. You know what I mean? It's all collapsed in on each other. And she pulls it off. I mean, she doesn't sound like Gaga because, as I alluded to earlier, Gaga has real range. But it's like, if Gaga doesn't want to be that, if Gaga is gonna, be doing the Joker or whatever she's gonna do, her musical theater Oscar campaign
Joker or
whatever you want to call it. Like,
okay, yeah,
like, yeah. And that chair is open. The Gaga's throne is open. Addison Rae is like, I'll do the karaoke version of it. Fine. And the fans are like, yeah, good enough.
Yeah. Wait, when are you getting to the bad part?
It's not bad. I'm just
I know, but I'm saying you were setting up for
it's extraordinarily modern. It also, the Addison Rae arc, other than her being extremely successful as a TikTok star for a semi-extended period of time and crossing over into some mainstream culture, it's really like the Rebecca Black model.
Wow. Yeah.
Rebecca Black, Friday, meme, punching bag, made fun of as a small child, disappears, comes back with cool music taste. Like, the only thing anyone ever mentions with Addison Rae now is that she likes Arca. You know what I mean? Which, like, and Sophie.
Great.
Which, fine. Like, if all you need to do is be like a semi-basic, conventionally attractive girl who also listens to Arca, and then you get to be a cult pop star. Like,
But if that was the case, why are so many people so bad at it? Right? Like you would think if that was enough, then like that entire category of performer that you just sort of ran through the list, all of those people would have huge fan bases and huge hits. And what they have are like medium-sized fan bases and not really hits.
But that's what's going to happen to Addison Rae too, which is like this song is not touching Men of Richmond.
Richmond North of Richmond. Sorry. Can't trade off knowledge of one viral star when we're talking about a separate viral star.
It's true.
But what if, now here's the thing. What if, hear me out. I agree. This is not a Billboard
it's not
number
going
one.
anywhere.
No, but what if this is the table upon which she climbs to get access to, I don't know, a Max Martin song?
Well, she's working with Max Martin proteges on this.
This
She's
is what I'm
shouted
saying.
out in Vogue. She's like, those Swedes know what they're doing with pop music, which again, she reads.
And here's the
or
thing.
watches YouTube videos.
And what this tells me, the fact that they put these songs out, is that there's both backstory and future story.
Yes.
These are leaks that people liked, ironically or unironically. These are leaks.
Yep.
They were then polished up, I presume, as a setup for something bigger.
Yep.
And that setup for something bigger, if they did not think that she had a viable, like this doesn't seem like they're releasing as like, LOL,
No, it seems like a palette cleanse from the first flop.
Exactly.
To be like, I see my own flop. Here's the songs you guys liked
flop,
more.
though?
No, Obsessed was a flop. Obsessed was a flop. Come on, objectively. No?
Two people are obsessed with ourselves. Like, I don't know. It's like,
she felt
where's
like
the line?
We'll put it this way. She felt like it was a flop. And then she saw people taking to songs they couldn't get officially, which is also, we should talk about that dynamic in general, because like rap fans do this too. They love a snippet while it's a snippet, and then the song comes out and they don't care anymore. You know, like people just like
the newness.
Yeah, and put
and
it
the
in
exclusivity and the sense of like hearing something that like you're not supposed to be hearing.
Which like as a scholar of leaks myself, like I see this, but it's if Obsessed would have been the leak and To Die For would have been the first single, then like they probably would have just swapped feelings, you know.
I feel like someone, when Obsessed came out, or maybe after it had done its arc, I feel like someone emailed me or messaged me and said that they had access to like a drive of Addison songs.
And here they are.
No, I know, but I'm saying if that person is listening or watching, please send me the password to that drive.
And
I
you
don't
called
know.
it.
Yeah. I don't know that I ever took advantage of it, so I apologize. I was wrong.
You were sitting on nothing on but the radio?
I was sitting on Men North of Richmond and nothing on but the radio. So anyway, please send that again. But to me, look, right now, who's in this space? Because this is what that piece kind of touched on, right? Who's in this space right now in the mainstream?
Yeah.
Who's the Gaga? Who's the Britney? Who's the Christina Aguilera? There is no person.
Yeah.
Genuinely, there is no person.
New Jeans.
What?
New Jeans
and Taylor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So again, no one. Not in the truest, straightest, narrowest sense.
For real, it's Dua Lipa.
Yes, but there is something extreme.
But that hold is tenuous.
Yes, and the way the Dua Lipa disco pop by numbers, there's an inherent ceiling, I think, to that. There's an emotional ceiling. There is a rigid style ceiling. It doesn't feel like it's broad and bringing people in. And the one thing about Addison Rae,
I don't know about that.
Okay, for me, this is like,
Sure.
you know, I think you and I disagree. I think me and Karen disagree. Like, but the thing about Addison, the thing that made her successful on TikTok was a broad-based relatability. And I think the reason that she got sort of upstreamed into like broader media faster than Charlie is Charlie, I think, was still living very much within the app and the boundaries of the app. And Addison, I felt like even from the very beginning, had eyes on something different and also presented not as Addison presented as like almost would say like a well-known person who happened to TikTok, whereas Charlie,
and you're like, I already know this girl from something, but really that was the thing you knew her from.
Yes, whereas Charlie, I think, was a TikToker who was trying to grow and become something more. Addison felt like she was coming at it from slightly outside that space, and I think
industry plant.
You and me both. Industry plant.
Industry
plant.
Sure.
Yeah. I wonder, is there a universe 2, 3, 4 years from now where there are no other people pretending to the throne of mainstream pop diva, and that's just open turf? for her to go sit with Max Martin for 3 weeks or 6 weeks or however long it takes to generate a hit. And then why not? Like, genuinely, why not? This also low-key tells me that maybe her career in Hollywood is not totally, I mean, obviously no one's career in Hollywood right now is stable.
Is doing super hot.
But it sort of tells me like maybe that's not the path. Or I mean, is the timing of this release connected to the Hollywood strike? Like, if she can't make money there, she can make money here. I don't know. But I wonder if this is a path that has been deemed by like all the powers that be as the most viable one for her for the next 2 to 3 years.
Let's listen to a little bit of the first song on the Addison Rae EP, I Got It Bad.
I'll be listening to it on the train home.
I got it bad. I didn't see it coming. I got it bad. I love it, but it's definitely something that could ruin my life. 'Cause I got it bad.
So that could have been our joint song of the week.
Month, week, month, season.
Yeah, but
Is there a song of the summer?
Late contender?
Late contender.
But every week we pick a song individually. So what do you got for us this week, John?
We have been following really closely what's been happening with Jersey Club and also the intersections of hip hop and Jersey Club over the last year and a half. The Bandmanrill album last year is one of my favorite albums of last year. Just an incredibly rhythmic rapper, like really, really clever with syllabic placement. A lot of enthusiasm, like rapping about tough stuff, but like rapping in a very like joyful and enthusiastic way.
Yep. Some yelping.
Great. And also just like really boisterous videos,
Yep.
like really, really like fun,
Yeah.
like fun, engaging, boisterous videos.
Jiggy and Jersey and the sequel.
Great.
Can't top them.
Yeah. Really, really great. So there's a new song by DJ Sliink. DJ Sliink is a very well-known Jersey Club producer. So it's featuring Bandmanrill and also SAFE, the singer SAFE. It's called In the Night. It's from an upcoming EP that Sliink is putting out. I think with this genre and a lot of genres like it, this happened with drill quite a bit. It hits this inflection point of like, okay, we have a defined sound. How do we traverse the space between here and like, in theory, a Hot 97? How do we get it in the ears of folks who maybe wouldn't ordinarily put on a Didi Osama record? Like, how do we get that? How do we bridge that gap? So to me, like Bandmanrill was already doing this pretty organically with the way that he was approaching making straight Jersey hip hop records, Jersey Club influence hip hop records. But this, with Sliink producing, kind of takes it to the next level. This is a song that has sort of like an elegiac, lustrous vocal. If you think it's just a fast R&B song, like maybe it's a fast R&B song. Also, sidebar, the new Snow Allegra song is also really good. Snow Allegra, get involved. But then when Bandmanrill comes in about halfway through, you're like, okay, this is like familiar terrain. So this feels like an early thinking through of the compromise era of this subgenre, and
But not as a slight necessarily.
No, not as a slight at all. Because I think one thing that we've learned time and again is like changing a little bit for broader exposure. Not to go back to the Oliver Anthony conversation, but like changing a tiny bit for a broader exposure is a natural path for any artist in any genre. Everybody's sort of like, no, I'm rigid, I will never change. But these are big conversations that are being had at every level with artists in every genre. And I feel like everybody's moving to like a more ambitious plane here. So let's check it out. It's In the Night.
Clocking your movements, love how you move it. Don't wanna waste things, back to the basics. No more excuses, I'm gonna use it and take advantage. I want you, I want it back.
Got a little Noname.
Shout out Noname, 50 Rappers Project.
It's true. She gave a great interview to Marcus Moore, and she put out a new album shortly after. It's called Sundial.
Yep.
And Noname is really good at rapping.
Very good.
And like, I think there was no question about that.
Yeah.
Going into it. She has a real sound and a voice and a subject matter, and this both
Great at putting words together.
great
Like,
at
just
putting
like
words, just a
genuinely great at putting
true
words together.
writer.
Yep.
I think this album has what you've come to expect out of a No-Name album,
Yeah.
but also has a few real jarring moments that, like, you know, you could she has like a lullaby quality to her sometimes, like in the she's like whispering in your ear almost. But I had a few moments listening to this album on the train a couple times over the last few weeks where you just sort of like get jolted into it. And one of them is on this track, Namesake. After two, typically great verses, she does a little coda where she calls out some of the biggest artists in the world for performing at the Super Bowl.
Right.
She names Rihanna, she names Jay-Z and Beyonce, and she names Kendrick. And then there's a little twist at the end where she also indicts herself. But this, reminded me of confrontational political rap, that I listened to when I was a teenager.
Yeah, sure.
It felt both fresh and urgent,
Yeah.
coming from someone like Noname, who has maybe even a bigger reputation as an activist and a voice online than she does as a musician, and I think is really living up to that on this album.
Yeah, I think also, speaking of the 50 Rappers Project, you have Stick from Dead Prez, you got Boots Riley. I mean, I feel like echoes of the Coup and echoes of Dead Prez
Definitely.
very present here.
Definitely. So let's listen to that part of Namesake.
Sure.
Go Beyonce, go. Watch the fighter jet fly high. War Machine gets glamorized. We play the game to pass the time. Go Kendrick, go. Watch the fighter jet fly high. War Machine gets glamorized. We play the game to pass the time. Go, Noname, go. Coachella stage got sanitized. I said I wouldn't perform for them, and somehow I still fell in line.
Shall we?
Yeah, I need a little pick-me-up.
Okay, so it seems like we're going to do something that I like to do, which is a double review. Doesn't always work, because sometimes you don't want to impose one narrative onto two things that are similar but not the same. Two viral stars, for example. You don't want to do that.
One sweet and one sour.
Yeah.
We have alt gummies.
Brand gummies.
Alt branded gummies.
Right.
Two candies you don't normally think of in gummy form.
Yeah.
Skittles, specifically sour Skittle gummies.
Okay, yeah.
And Twizzler gummies.
Yeah, Twizzler is one flavor. Why are there multiple flavors? Like, am I wrong? Are there like regional Twizzlers?
There are pull and peel different than OG Twizzler. Like there's some variation of Twizzler, but not like this.
What are the flavors on
These
this?
are lemonade cherry, peach cherry, and grape cherry.
Not canon.
Twizzler is strawberry flavored, not
This is
even
what I'm
cherry
saying, literally
flavored,
not
typically.
So this is a twofold problem here.
Yes.
This is an alternate delivery mechanism and also wrong flavors, non-canonical flavors.
And yet I'm excited. So you start with the Twizzlers and I'll start with the Skittles.
Yeah, I don't know, bro.
Oh yeah, these are good.
Oh, these aren't even shaped like Twizzlers.
Nothing to do with the Twizzler, really.
There's some real third-party branding here.
These are serviceable. I could kill a whole bag of these sour Skittle gummies, but I wouldn't love it. Actually, does taste like a Skittle though, which is impressive for a gummy variation. So these are, the gummy itself is lips eating a Twizzler.
I hate it.
I like that. I like that artistically. You're eating a Twizzler of somebody eating a Twizzler. See that?
I thought it was a tongue. You sure it's not eating?
It's a Twizzler that resembles a tongue.
I hate it. I hate it.
Talk to me about the Twizzler gummies.
I rebuke it.
You're out.
Yeah.
All the way.
It doesn't need to exist.
Most of this doesn't.
I mean, they're Sour Patch Kids.
They're not Sour Patch Kids, but they're close.
Yeah, but I'm saying in theory.
Yeah, but they do have a Skittles kick to them after.
Yeah, I mean, that's a 2.
The Twizzlers one too. All right, I put it more like a 4. It's useless. It tastes like a Jolly Rancher gummy, which is also an alt gummy that doesn't need to exist.
Doesn't need to exist.
I kind of like it.
I'm gonna go 6.5 on these.
Okay.
I don't really like sour stuff generally, but I feel like it delivers on its promise.
Sure.
But I would never buy it.
Okay.
But it's fine.
These are things that I not only did I buy, but I would buy, even not for the podcast. I like gummies and I like sour gummies. That's my go-to flavor. So Both of these to me are edible. Like I could eat a whole bag of either of these, but I don't particularly love either. I put them both at just plain 5s probably. I'll give them the same score. They don't even deserve 2 separate scores, but they're edible.
The Old Spin Magazine, 2, 6. That's where I'm at. I'm sticking with it. That's our show, full of contentious opinions and takes. Listen to every Popcast ever at nytimes.com/Popcast. Watch us on Popcast Deluxe on YouTube. It's tinyurl.com/Popcast Deluxe. You'll get the full slate of episodes. Subscribe to Popcast anywhere you get your audio/video content. That's Apple Music, that's Spotify, and that is YouTube. Email us, popcast@nytimes.com with questions. Get in the Facebook group or get in the Discord. It's tinyurl.com/Popcast Facebook or /Popcast Discord. T-shirts and stickers. It's the popcast.myshopify.com. Our producer is Sawyer Roque. Our editor is Jamie Heffitz. Who else are we thinking this week?
Karen Gans and Pedro Rosado.
Leslie Davis. As always, we'll be back next week.